All right. Happy Wednesday. Happy June. Happy midpoint of Phish's spring, or is it leg one of their summer tour? We're still debating the semantics of all of that, as well as the performances of songs, as well as returns into songs, as well as second and fourth quarters of shows. There's so much to be debated at this point. We have so much content. We just have to get through it all. This is, of course, the Helping Friendly podcast. My name is Brian. I'm here with the founder, OG host, the listener of obscure classic rock radio countdowns, the man who tells everyone to grow up if they're going to select the wrong songs in the right places in a classic rock countdown, Mr. RJB. How are you doing here today?
Good. Thanks for the intro. That was something.
What was the biggest affront in the Memorial Day weekend classic rock countdown you were listening to from
Oh
Tampa,
man.
Florida?
Okay. Well, first of all, there were I think like six ACDC songs in the top 50 or something, which is just like it's just it's just not how it goes. In my opinion. I would say the biggest thing though, honestly, because I've thought about this a lot. There were the top two Rolling Stones songs in the entire countdown were numbers 66 and 65. So there's no Rolling
Seems wrong.
Stones above 65. I mean, what kind of bullshit is this? There's also like there was very little Tom Petty. Tom Petty makes possibly the best, most fluid rock songs of all time, and he's from Florida.
Tom
Those are the
Petty
things.
makes rock music that literally could bring the country back together, which
Yeah.
maybe is not the point of classic rock in the year 2022. I don't know. I was looking through the countdown as you were posting it, and I was thinking to myself, the best case scenario for this countdown is being day drunk at a dive bar playing pool and eating like Cajun tater tots, which is, that's a mood. And I'm into that mood from time to time. But that's not necessarily like the only way I see classic rock. And I'm wondering if that's where your advice to the radio station of grow up came from.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was listener. I think it was a listener thing, and
Mm.
having Night Moves by Bob Seger, which is to me, would be a top 10 song of all time at number 336 or something. I'm like, I can't trust these people anymore.
Do you
That's
think it's
that's what happened.
because they haven't seen our performance of Night Moves?
Possibly, maybe we need to post that. I'm just getting my letter together for this Tampa radio station, and just so I'm kind of still putting it together.
Well, if you need any help, I have thoughts, I have opinions. I'm a little worked up, you know?
Yeah,
I
no,
was
me
I,
too,
I
man.
had no skin in the game. I didn't listen to a single second of it, but I was sitting there being like, this is just wrong.
Well, now you know, man. I wanted to share that with everybody.
Well, we actually created an incredible segue here into the main content of the show. And I apologize to our guest if he does not want me sharing this public, but I'm going to have to share it here public. Our guest today is Mr. Matt Higgins, whose .NET handle happens to be Night Moves, which just works perfectly. We've got a vibe here.
There's a vibe.
We're going to be covering last night's Phish show from Charleston, South Carolina, which is just a couple hundred miles north of Tampa, Florida, where the atrocity went down, which was the Memorial Day Classic Rock Countdown. We're going to bring Matt on here shortly. We're going to talk through last night's show. We're going to talk through set opening jams. We're going to talk through encore jams. We're going to talk through, is the band about to do another no repeat tour? There's so much up in the air. We're gonna debate aggressively, I think, because RJ, you look ready to aggressively debate this issue. Should the band return to their songs or not? And we want to have a clear answer coming out of this because we're going to send a message to the band following or today's show to make sure that they do what we all request. Is that correct?
I think it is. I'm ready.
I'm ready too. So we're going to dive into today's show here in 1 second. Charleston, South Carolina's 5/31/2022 recap. Before we do that, though, RJ, I think we have some friends of the pod to thank for supporting us.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think everyone who listens and watches knows about Sunset Lake, but Sunset Lake, they develop a ton of CBD products, including smokable hemp products, salves, gummies, all sorts of things. We know, we know, and I hope you know that smoking CBD has all the benefits of high THC cannabis without some of the side effects that happen to some of us. They have 9 different strains from this year's harvest, so there's something for everyone. There's Hawaiian Haze, there's Cherry Advocate, there's a bunch. And I'm not going to go through them all because you guys should just go to sunsetlakecbd.com and use the code HFPod for 20% off. They are doing some amazing stuff, and all of their flower is grown, cured, and trimmed by their farmers. And anyway, they're great, and we appreciate them supporting us. So you can support us by supporting them. Go to sunsetlakecbd.com and use the code HFPod for 20% off.
Absolutely. And they're all about to see, I think, a lot of their first goose shows up in Essex, Vermont. There's another podcast on Osiris Media, The Great Beyond, that is doing weekly recaps of Goose Tour and a lot of Goose content, even though they're not a Goose podcast, as they say. They are still covering the band Goose. And so if you see anyone from Sunset Lake up at the Essex show this weekend, go and give them a high five. They're amazing people, and definitely check them out. I want to post this comment really quickly because it's just none of our listeners will be able to hear this, but our viewers will be able to see this, which is great. Mr. Timothy Wheaton, the excellent host of the Daddy Unscripted podcast, says the RJ's setup is reminding me of the awesome scene from Time Bandits where the wall moves back and falls into blackness. I think that your setup is one of the best podcasting setups I've ever seen. You've got all your J cards behind you. You've got the great lights, but yeah, I could see that back wall just falling into oblivion. I don't know. It's great.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim. I think it's time on that note that we bring on our guest, Mr. Matt Higgins, otherwise known as Night Moves. Matt, welcome to the pod. How are you doing today?
Hey, Brian. Hey, RJ. Thanks for having me. Doing great.
Awesome. You are in Charleston, South Carolina. How's it going down there? What's the weather like? What's the scene like?
Oh, it's been great. We flew in on Sunday night, and I'm coming from Los Angeles, so the humidity was a bit of a shockwave to the system, but it's been great. Been getting oysters, good barbecue, been doing all the usual Charleston, been checking off all the boxes.
Awesome. Is this your first time going there since the last time Phish played? I know you mentioned before we went live that you try to get there whenever Phish does a run.
Yeah, so few of us were at the Charleston run in 16 and then again in 19, and we're back again.
It's a good destination city to go and see some Phish.
It's one of those destinations when you see the band announce that they're gonna make a stop, you try to prioritize that if possible.
Awesome. Yeah, I love it there. Well, tell us really quick before we jump into the show. How'd you get into Phish? What was your first show? And do you have any favorite shows you've seen?
Oh yeah. So it's funny, Brian. I hear you kind of coin yourself a lot as the 2.0 noob, because not only am I a 3.0 noob, but I'm a back half of the 3.0 noob. So it wasn't until college that Phish kind of really came on my radar. I remember it was after the Hampton run in 2013 when I had a bunch of buddies go, and I had known Phish. I'd listened to the Grateful Dead been a big Deadhead, and had a couple friends try to get me into Phish senior year of high school, freshman year of college, and I was of the mindset of, you mean the band that jumps on trampolines, So and that was just my attitude. And then when that attitude, having been without listening to 5 minutes of the band, of course, but had a bunch of buddies come back from that Hampton 13 run and could not stop talking about it, and really just threw it threw it in my face, shoved it down my throat, all that content, constant live Phish videos. And finally I was like, you know what, we'll give them a chance. But I actually didn't get to see my first show until Lock-In 2016. So yeah, those were fun shows. And it was Lock-In 2016, Charleston 16, and then it was really that MSG New Year's Eve run that I was sold.
Right on. That's nice. A good run. That 12:30 show is one of my favorites of all time.
Yeah, it still gets played quite a bit.
It's funny. There's one of our good friends, Rob Mitchum, often writes about the reason why Phish never appealed. You know, obviously they have a huge appeal playing MSG constantly, playing large arenas, but like the cultural cachet is the humor that comes with it. And the trampolines comment, like that can keep people away. I totally get it. It's like, I want to go see a rock show. What in the world is happening here? So I get that. It's a hurdle.
Yeah. The fun dichotomy between, listening to a nice Morning Dew and then switching the visuals to the trampolines. It's it can be a shock to some systems.
Absolutely.
Not everybody can handle it.
Yeah.
So tell us, so we're at the Credit One Stadium, which is a new venue for Phish. This is a tennis stadium down in Charleston. What have your thoughts been on the arena after one night? What was it like getting in? What were the sight lines like? All that?
Yeah, it's a hit. First off, it's kind of a trip being in there. Like you said, the fact that, if you're on the floors, you're standing on a tennis court, and it's not, an expanded tennis court with a lot of room on either side or on the back of the tennis court. There's not really, it's not possible to expand that. So it's wild. But yeah, when we got there a bit early, we were on the floors, and we had some friends up in the upper level, which was all GA, and they wanted to get a good spot. And, like you said, first time in a new venue. So we wanted to get our bearings and, just figure it out, so to speak. And walking up to the venue, the line looked pretty intimidating, even, an hour early, but it moved really efficiently, surprisingly. And so that was a good point. And yeah, walking in, I'd say that, it didn't really start filling in until like 20 minutes before 7:00, I think, because I think the band came on a few minutes after 7, but it was pretty empty until those 15, 20 minutes before. But by the time the band came on, I'd say the place was 75, 80% full, but lots of room on the floor. It looked like there was plenty of room to move around up in the seats. And it was a pretty enjoyable experience all around. It was, again, once the band got playing and you see all the bodies start bouncing, it was a really cool scene. One note though, the venue, I will say, because we spent the first few songs up top with the friends just to see the different perspective, and the venue, they only have bathrooms on the first. Possibly going their first time tonight.
I lost you there for a second, but I believe you said there are only bathrooms on the first level. So
yes,
you have to
anybody going tonight
up and down.
Oh, hey, you guys.
Yeah, we can hear you.
We got you.
That's a huge problem for me.
Yeah, luckily, I will say it's not too inconvenient.
While we're waiting on Matt coming back in and out, I'm gonna let you out of the room really quick while you just sort out the tech side on your end. I'll just say we had a comment up here from Joel Schooling, no bad seats. I got this message from my brother as well, who's at the shows, that on the whole, there was no bad sight line. And he sent me videos from the event. I was watching it last night on the webcast, and it was just like, it looked like anywhere you sat in that venue, it was incredible.
The photos were awesome, and I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how many levels are there? Are there only 2, or are there like multiple? Because it looks really high up there in the seats.
Yeah, from the looks of it, there's the floor, there's the wraparound like 200 level, and then there's the 300 level up top. Matt, we were just discussing, are there 3 levels to this, including the floor, or is there another like club level in there?
There are 3 levels. So, from my understanding, and I think I'm going to get a better understanding tonight, but there's a top 3rd level, which is all GA. There's the floor, which is all GA. And then it looks like, a 100, 200 type deal that I believe are assigned seats. I'm not positive, but I think that's the layout.
Got it. So free moving for most of the venue, but then
yeah,
you've got that lower bowl area that's all assigned.
Yeah, and the floors, I'll say, there was a lot of room to move around. I mean,
Sweet.
One of the more spacious floors I've been on. So that was a nice treat.
So, Matt, this Set Your Soul Free opener, it has caused a lot of conversation online. Just in terms of the pure, like, I don't know, it's a lot of song to put out there right away. And it seemed like it took off pretty quickly. What was the reaction, and what was the crowd energy like once that got moving?
Yeah, I mean, I think it seems like that's been the trend so far. The spring tour is strong first quarters, but yeah, starting off with Set Your Soul Free. It's I think since its debut at, what was that, the Gorge in 2018, I know Brian likes to talk sometimes batting averages. It has as high of batting average as any song, I think, since its debut.
Yeah.
But it's not my favorite song. I'm by no means a hater, but when they started playing it, the crowd started going. But as it's been seeming the last year since they've come back, jamming is really the band's safe space, and they just immediately after the song proper really just dive right in.
I'm looking just historically at it. So there's been 27 performances of Set Your Soul Free. 10 of those have ended up on the jam chart. That's incredibly high, in terms of like a high batting average, if you will. And I'm just looking through, like, you had the 3rd performance, I believe, all time, 2nd performance all time. The San Francisco 2018 version opens up that 2nd set at almost 24 minutes. And it's just like, you could hear them immediately. Whatever the groove was in that song just allowed them to lift off. And it's wild to see. I think, as Scott Marks tweeted last night, it was the 3rd or 4th longest show opening jam they've ever played.
Yeah, I saw that too. I saw, 3rd, 4th, 5th. And not only that, I think, this is the 3rd straight performance where the songs reached 20 plus minutes, which just, again, goes to show you when they play the song, they're really there to explore it. And so for them to open up with that song really shows you, where the song's been since they debuted, because I think the first time I saw it was they opened up the Gorge Run in 2018. It was the very first song of the first night, a quick, 6-7 minute, and now almost 4 years later, opening it again, but having just a completely, not just take, but purpose for the song. It's pretty incredible.
What do you think about the jam? I mean, the 23 minutes or something, I listened to it on a walk with my dog this morning. It kind of went by pretty quickly, which is, I wasn't like waiting to see where it was going. It felt like, it feels like Fishman is always like one step ahead of the rest of the band at this point, just because he's playing so fast all the time. But did anything stick out to you about the jam itself?
Just that they really dropped right into the jam pretty early. I know that Trey caught on a nice riff pretty early on and brought I don't know the technical term, I call it the growler out. And, it was, I found it throughout the show, and I'm, my ear hasn't been too close to the ground to really pick out if this is happening all tour, but last night in particular, it sounded like Trey was hopping back and forth between, getting on the effects, back to more of the clean melody playing that we heard a lot in MSG, and then back into the effects, and then back into the clean playing. I feel like a lot of times in past years, he'll stick with one for half the jam, and the second half of the jam go to the other. And last night was really going back and forth, and I heard that in the Set Your Soul Free as well.
Yeah,
it's a really
sorry, Brian.
good point. Yeah,
Pages so far this tour, I feel like the jams have really taken off once Page starts switching his wherever he is on his rig. Like they sort of can get a little bit stuck. I feel like that's what like unsticks them, is like getting to the next the next spot, which I think is just crazy. I don't even know how many pieces of equipment he has up there, but it feels like it's like 30 of them.
It grows by the tour.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I find that Page, as he moves, and if he moves early on, the band moves with him. I think the note that you made there, Matt, about like Trey going back and forth between this kind of clean approach and this more effect heavy approach. I hadn't really thought about it in that sort of way, but I think that you're right in terms of where they've been going this tour, that he seemed to focus heavily on a very clean approach at MSG, where you didn't hear a ton of his synth pedals. It was really just him. And I think it's best exemplified in the Chalk Dust tweezer from the second night, where you didn't really need a lot of effects. It was just the band playing music. And that almost seems to have inspired him, at least from a listening standpoint, that we can get through a segment of improvisation without any sort of addition of effects, and maybe let Page shine, give Mike a little bit more space to breathe, but then we can add something to it. I found it really funny, just like skipping way ahead in the tube. He was so lost in his effects that when the band brought it back to the final riff, before they go into the last verse, Trey had to hit like 7 different effect pedals just to get his guitar back to like its normal sound. And that kind of exemplified like how deep into it he was.
Matt, I'm just going to ask about, so unless you want to say anything else about the Set Your Soul Free. I was doing some very, very intensive research, and the Walls of the Cave there, like second slot. I mean, that's a huge surprise. I think the last time they played Walls of the Cave in the first set when it didn't close was UIC August 2011. So
yeah,
it's been a long time. Also, I will note that in that show there's a Down with Disease jam that's really good, and that had a Leave It to Beaver tease in it. So I don't think that's obviously not connected at all, but I just wanted to mention that. But strange placement for that song, and probably took some people by surprise.
Yeah, and again, it feels like that's been the theme for the last 9-10 months of playing, is switching up the set list. I almost said throw a curveball in there, but yeah, it was one of those when they throw Walls of the Cave in the 2 slot, the way they've been playing, that they're probably going to dig deep. Now, I don't know if people were expecting Walls of the Cave to go type 2, but that's what they gave us.
Yeah, I thought this was a gorgeous take on it, and it kind of speaks to what we were all saying with regards to the Set Your Soul Free. Is Page seemed to move to a synth while they were still in the standard jam segment of Walls of the Cave, and it just inspired Trey to move into this very blissful tone and just allow the jam to kind of just like exist in a dreamlike space. And you're 2 songs into the show at that point in time, you're kind of starting to wonder, like, are we getting a 4 or 5 song first set? Like, is it like, what is about to happen here? Regardless what's about to happen, like the way that they're opening the show, basically the first 40 minutes of the overall show is being dedicated to Set Your Soul Free. Not the most obscure of openers, but definitely placement wise, Walls of the Cave not expected in that slot. And both songs just showing off a band that feels like, it doesn't feel like they're working hard to play a lot of this music. It feels very enjoyable. It feels very effortless. And it feels like when they find a musical turning point, they just kind of follow it to see where it goes, before either returning to the song that they're playing or moving into a new song. It's just, it's really enjoyable just to listen to right now.
And just to touch on that point you just mentioned, Brian, coming back into the song they're playing. This is a very, very controversial for them to finish the song. I mean, Trey, like, I think it was like 2018, 2019, Trey would be like, you could tell he was like super happy when they would go back into finish a song after a long jam. Like he would like smile because he like pulled it off, you know? And I think that's like something they've been doing. But last night, both of those first two songs had a little bit more of an abrupt landing, but people kept referring to them as ripcords. But I always thought that a ripcord only exists if you're going into a different song. But can you ripcord back into the song that you're playing?
I heard the same.
What do you guys
thing.
think?
I heard the same thing in the audience, RJ. I think I think I agree with you. I don't know if you can ripcord back, but I think just the abruptness, especially in the Set Your Soul Free, just the term ripcord certainly rattled around in most people's brains.
Yeah. I mean, it was a little jarring.
It is interesting. Like, I thought the Walls of the Cave one worked fairly well. I was listening to it in the moment, and I was like, okay, there could have been more of a jam here, but like he found at least the right, I don't know, minor chord that worked with what key they were playing in to like bring it back. I found it really funny listening to Set Your Soul Free because there is like a peak that happens and then they're right back into Set Your Soul Free. And it's not even like musically unified. It felt in any sort of way. But yeah, I mean, I think it's almost become endearing, this sense of like, you look at so many Phish set lists from the late 90s and the 2.0 era, and there's so many segues into a new jam. And so a song begins. Down with Disease, like the perfect example. It's like unfinished every time. They almost don't even need to label it at this point. Tweezer's the same way. They like barely will ever return into the Tweezer riff. And when they do, it's actually kind of special. But there's this new sentiment of, it's almost like we have to remind the crowd that we started with this song, went on this journey, and then have found our way back home. But I don't know. It's strangely endearing to me, even though I would prefer just the segue at that point in time.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I think it does. I guess after like 23 minutes or 16 minutes, whatever those two jams were, it's a little bit hard to nitpick. But, you know, if it was
totally,
if it was like, you know, 7 minutes in the middle of a jam, I think that's a little bit different. But it's definitely causing some conversation. But Matt, what was the? I mean, you know, it's always different in the venue, obviously. After those first two songs, then I think the rest of the set to me seemed like fine. You know, but it wasn't. It's sort of like after those two songs, they kind of just could do whatever. You know, like it didn't really matter. But what was the feeling about the rest of the set?
Well, it's funny. Yeah. Going back to what Brian said, after those first two songs, a lot of people were feeling, and, you know, it's the same feeling before every show. I always say, oh, we're going to get a good one tonight, you know, but yeah, we were thinking, oh, this could be a 5, 6, 7 song jammed out first set. Wasn't that, you know, my notes pretty much stopped after the Walls of the Cave, but it was enjoyable. I know, you know, the one other real highlight or standout to me, at least, was the Ocelot. Nice little summer breezy jam. But the only note that I have for that Ocelot is that this one had claws.
I agree. I'm an Ocelot stan here. I will take an Ocelot in every summer first set. I don't care if it becomes repetitive. Just that groove, like as the light is getting a little bit dim, I don't know. There's something about just like the way that song plods along that just works perfectly in that sort of setting. And I thought this one, like at least in the solo segment, Trey seemed to be seeking another kind of turning point within the jam. And I listened back recently to the JFAT tour from late September, early October, you know, when Fishman joined Tab on drums. And there's a great version of Ocelot from, I believe, the Pittsburgh show that plays for like 15 minutes and just like showcases space within that song if they wanted to explore it. Any other big highlights from the first set for you, or just kind of
from the first
solid
set.
little first set.
No, it's I believe what was right before Ocelot, or I guess that was my friend. My friend was a few others. No, the only other the only other notes that I have were, Steam had some nice playing by Trey, as did the Ocelot, but that was it was don't want to say a paint by numbers, but it was a standard rest of the set for me. I love a good coil though. Always welcome that.
Yeah, it's a nice closer there.
One of the best closers you could have. Yeah.
And the Leaves jam seems to be evolving. I don't remember it sounding so much like I guess they're still kind of trying to figure out the improv on Leaves, but it sounded a little more like the jam is evolving. It sounded like a little bit more of a jam than some of the other versions.
I agree. So looking at set 2, they come out, and we've now gotten to the point where we have to kind of expect that when they start playing the chords to Axilla, that it's going to be part 2, which I was thinking about this morning. Like,
at what point does part 1 become the bust out?
Right. I was thinking, like, my second Phish show, they opened with Axilla back in 2003, and I just have this very distinct memory of being such a noob and thinking to myself, is this 1 or is this 2, and not knowing. And I look back on that and I laugh, because if that had been if Axilla 2 had been played at that point, it would have been a huge deal. When it got busted out last year at Shoreline, it was a massive moment, and it just seems like that's become the norm now. And what a weird, like, flip to a song that just everyone thought was on the shelf, forgotten, not going to be played again. We've gotten since then a 21-minute version, a 10-minute version, and then here, this didn't really go off into crazy territory, but we're at least 7-8 minutes. There's a bunch of joking around between Fishman and Trey. This segment here, the Axilla 2 2001 and Light, was some of my favorite parts of the overall show. What was the opening of the second set like for you?
Oh yeah. I think this was, since that Shoreline bust out for part 2, which we were luckily at. I think this is the 4th, or it's got to be at least the 4th version I've seen. So like you said, Brian, I expect it now. And when he opens with the Summers, I go, yep, part 2. But it's great. It kind of, now that they're exploring that outro jam to it, it kind of keeps you on your toes when they go into it. It's not so much when they go to Axilla part 1, you're going to get a 3-minute shot of adrenaline. But now, it could be more of a MSG 10-11 minute jammed out version, or dare I say, a Vegas 21-minute, whatever that timing was, or even last night was 7.5, 8 minutes. But that outro jam just kind of keeps you on your toes now. So that's a fun new element to the set, I think. And then 2001's always a dance party, and I kind of like what Trey was doing in that first jam.
Yeah, I was just looking really quickly just to confirm something I've been thinking about. Axilla 1 was played in Mexico, but it contained the Axilla part 2 ending, which was just like another like bizarre turn of events here, that like we're going to play both back to back, but we're going to add the 2 ending, because like, why wouldn't we add a jam onto all these songs? The jam is an amazing part of this. But the 2001, I'm thinking back, I think it was Eugene last year, that there was just a really standout version late in the second set. And it seems now 2001 is one of those songs that, like, when they play it in recent years, always felt kind of like we're having a fun dance heavy second set, not too much exploration, just like fun grooves. And they're going to throw 2001 out as like the 4th or 5th song of the set. To have it be the second song of a second set, where like it stretches to about 12 minutes, really kind of showcases that they're, at least for right now, they've rediscovered a lot of creativity with it. RJ, what did you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, this set, I think that both these sets sort of have these like an arc to them, where it like starts off like the kind of the end of the set sort of like is a soft landing, but the beginning, the first like 30-40 minutes of this set is really incredible. I someone on Twitter was just saying, like, does it seem like Trey is kind of repeating or revisiting a bunch of the kind of themes or riffs or whatever that have been happening this tour? I've been noticing that in some of the jams from last night, Set Your Soul Free and Light. But it doesn't bother me. I think it's like it all works, but I don't know if you guys felt that, but I feel like there's some thematic similarities in terms of his playing. Like almost like he's playing something that you recognize but can't identify. But it does seem like there's like a lot of thematic consistency with his playing.
I definitely get that, and it kind of reminds me of, like, in 99, they'd be playing a jam and then Trey would hit the sirens, and the sirens would kind of like dictate the jam is moving into a new space, and then he would potentially move over to the second keyboard and he would, play a little bit of music over there. It kind of seems like they're in a thematic space right now, and there are like callbacks. And I guess it seems to me to be more interesting than when like he was so interested in playing the San Jose. Is that what it is? That riff, like, he would always like throw that sort of thing in. Like, it feels like the thematic returning points are new ideas, but like rooted in the same place, and that kind of his musical headspace keeps returning there, but like it's all new ideas that he's pushing out, rather than like teasing another song, or rather than throwing like, let's throw sirens on and let's move over to the keyboard because like that's where he feels like playing right now. There's a lot that seems to be focused on the guitar playing. I don't know if you've heard any of this, Matt.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes back into kind of what I was saying earlier in the cast was, instead of when, if Trey starts a jam focusing more on the melody and more of the clean approach, and then you hear the effects come on, and rather than stay in that area and explore, he goes back and goes, well, maybe let's go back and call on that riff and see where else we can take this. Or even kind of what RJ was saying, I've been hearing since MSG certain clean licks, especially the spring tour, that sound familiar, but they sound new to me, and I can't put my finger on it. And it's new. It's a big shift in my mind, at least from what they were doing in the fall, which was just really that heavy approach, that emphasis on the effects. So it's been really interesting, this tour, switching it up like that.
It's almost like he's trying to incorporate the effects into his overall playing rather than have the effects dominate, which was what I agree we heard throughout the fall, and I loved it. But like every single jam moved in one direction in the fall in a very cool way, but also in a way that like not necessarily got predictable, but like it was clear he was obsessed with this new sound that we were all kind of obsessed with too.
Yeah, it was almost a crutch, not a bad crutch at all. I don't mean that in a negative sense, but it's definitely something that he could rely on, and he knew that he could do it well, which we heard throughout that entire 13 show run.
I have a habit of re-listening to the fall 97 tour pretty much every year, like in order, just because it's so good. It's like some of the best Phish you'll ever hear. And by like mid-December, I find myself being like, okay, here's another funk jam. And it's the same sort of way of like, they were obsessed with that sound. Let's keep going every jam in that direction. And
there's nothing wrong with that.
No, give me more funk, give me more of the synth pedal, but like the way he's incorporating it has been really cool. I thought the Light offered a really cool way to incorporate it. Light being played here on its 13th anniversary of its debut. I still remember I was at the Fenway show when it debuted. It was one of, I think, 3 or 4 songs debuted that night. Ocelot and Time Turns Elastic were also debuted that night, maybe one other. But I remember it came out of a Tweezer jam, and it sounded like a jam right out the gates, but it was only like 5 minutes, and then it ended on them like singing "And the Light Is Growing Brighter Now" and like in like a chorus. There was no ending jam to it. And within 2 weeks, it was a 10-minute noise jam at Bonnaroo, and the rest is history. I mean, this is one of the most reliable songs over the last 13 years. And this year thus far, the MSG version and this version have been absolute standouts. What were you guys' thoughts on this performance here? This was, I think, probably my highlight of the overall show.
Same here. This was certainly the highlight. I've already listened to it twice today, and probably listen to it again before the show. Again, same thing I was saying earlier, and so somebody correct me, but if my memory serves me, again, just the Trey going back between finding a nice riff that he wants to just take the rest of the band on, and then just moving into the pedals. What did you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think there was like a lot of cycling through some different ideas, which is interesting because I think that the sound changed several times, which kind of kept the momentum going. I thought it was great. I've only listened back to it once. I need to listen again. I'll just say that the Mountains in the Mist landing is just man, you can't really ask for anything better than that.
That is nice, and yeah, it's a nice Mountains in the Mist is always welcome. I don't know if you all heard. It sounded like Mike was really trying to go to Passing Through there, and Trey either didn't hear or just sounded like he wasn't having any of it.
I was laughing at that because, like, we talked about it. We don't need to rehash it, but like the Set Your Soul Free re-entry was a bit rough. But it was all like Trey being like, we're going back into Set Your Soul Free, whether you like it or not. You in the audience, you on stage, like this is the direction that we're moving in this song. And you kind of got the sense that Mike got that idea, and it worked. Like the chords were like upbeat. They could have very easily gone into Passing Through. And Trey was just like, nope, I'm going to play a minor chord right now. We're going to keep vamping for about 30 seconds. And then, I want to play Mountains in the Mist. That's where we're going right now. And I feel like Phish is at like a no analysis point in their career where they just kind of like roll with it, and they're not going to get off stage and yell at each other about decisions. But that definitely would be a moment if I was Mike of like, well, what the hell? I want to play a song. Why can't we play the song I want to play?
I mean, they are like with the the quadraphonic toppling fiasco. Like they are kind of, and also just the Fishman stuff. I mean, it's just beyond ridiculous in my opinion. Like it's almost like it's like a free for all in terms of whatever you want to do in the background while things are happening, you can do. So like maybe that's part of what Mike was doing. He's like, I'm just gonna like, I mean, but it would have been a great segue if they had gone in that direction, but also like with them just yelling random things and Fishman pressing buttons, and it's like I feel like everyone can just do what they want, so maybe that's part of it, but it did seem like Mike was ready to go.
Yeah, speaking of that, did you all, I didn't catch it, but were there any Leave It to Beaver teases, the new spring tour tease last night?
During Meet, as Mike and Phish faced each other and were doing kind of the start-stop jamming, every time they stopped, Fishman had the, what is the phrase? This is going to be awfully hard on the beaver, I suppose.
Yeah. I'm afraid.
I'm afraid. Which on Sunday night, I had the Celtics Heat game on my computer, and I had the Phish show on, and my wife and I were watching, and it was like the last 2 minutes of the basketball game. So I turned the volume on because like it was a hyper intense basketball game. And Fishman around 20 minutes in the tweezers starts hitting the beaver sampler. And my wife was like, what is all this noise right now? Why are they yelling at us? Like, who is talking to us? And I was like, oh, no, that's Fishman. She was like, oh, okay. Found it really funny. And, but there was so much happening in that moment, but you thought and like whatever else came out last year, the sampler was like the peak of Fishman's technological humor. And then they've just come back and surprised us all over again.
Well, I mean, whatever happened, the Passing Through has only been played a handful of times. I think maybe 4 or 5 times since it debuted in 2018, and that would have been like, that's a cool song. I think it would have worked, but instead we got a great landing place with Mountains in the Mist.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, RJ. I think it might, I don't know if it's the last time it was played or maybe 2 performances ago, but I know last time I saw it was at Shoreline this past summer, and after a great Cities jam, they just landed.
Yeah.
It didn't even sound deliberate. It sounded like they just were jamming and they go, "Oh, we're playing Passing Through," and it worked perfectly.
Sorry, go ahead, Brian.
I was just gonna say that kind of was the feel I had at that point in the
Yeah.
light was we're moving right into this song.
Exactly.
That, it provides us better content when it happens this way rather than like this great segue that we're just like, oh, beautiful butter seg, you know.
Before we continue, Brian, can I just say one thing? Because
Yeah.
I just got a message from my friend Sam, who was complimenting Matt's hat. And I just want to say, Matt, that the reason you're here, I was actually on a train with my friend Sam on the way to the MSG shows, and I walked by and you were like, hey, and then we talked, and I was like, you should come on for a quick hit. And so we brought it full circle, and I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, again, I really appreciate it. As I like to say, long-time listener, first-time caller.
It's totally applicable in this situation.
Completely.
So Sam, that was for you. So the meat thing. So the thing is, what do you guys think about this? Like all the nonsense and the effects and the talking, and I mean, like, are there songs that it's appropriate for and songs that it is not, or is it just like do whatever you want?
You know, I just, as long as they stay away from the yeahs during a slave peak, I'm good.
God, I forgot that was the original controversy of last summer's tour was they were doing the slave peak. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like, I don't know what side I landed on this. I'm sure it was the contrarian side last summer, but slave and hood feel as like close to a spiritual experience that you're going to get, especially when placed in this like very amplified late second set slot where the whole point of the song feels to be like, let's reflect on this experience we just had together, let's share in it, let's relish in it. And then when you get a yeah, it just kind of snaps you out of that moment of like zen. But at the same time, you know, this is stuff that we've talked about on Undermine. Like the humorous side of Phish is so much. It was like, you know, what we were talking about at the start of this, Matt, like the trampolines, like that aspect of the band, that like kind of cringe humor almost ends up being a part of that spiritual journey of it. So I kind of fall somewhere in the middle of like, I don't necessarily want to hear a yeah in those moments, but I also, without Fishman doing that. Yeah, you get it. What do you think, RJ? Is Fishman voicing his approval?
It's a good question. Is he voicing his approval? I mean, well, there's also a big difference between what you want and what you get. So, you know,
sure.
So I wouldn't worry too much about it. You know, like I do worry about it sometimes, but I shouldn't, because nothing I do or say is going to change anything. So no, but I do think it's, Jonathan said, and Jonathan, you should just be here with us. I mean, thank you for all your commentary, but just join us because we'd like to see you. It is kind of like the new secret language, and jokes will continue to happen. I guess like the meat is that's a good time for that.
Yeah, no, I'm all for the effects. I want that to be clear. Again, it's just during the part of slave.
I think slave and hood are off limits, like Brian said. Reba jam, you know, like
I'm just stuck on the idea now of Fishman being like, wow, whatever we're playing is great, and hitting the yeah effect. That's how I'm going to envision this going forward. I think that's a great way to position it. And anytime I hear him, like, oh, Fishman must be happy right now.
So what happened, Matt? What happened at the end? Because I was listening back. I didn't watch it, but do you think that they like realized that they had more time left for the curfew, and that's why like the encore was super long, or did it seem like the slave cavern? Did it seem early to people there? Were people like, oh shit, it's over already? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to say that it was, you know, mismanaged time. You know, they're the professionals. They likely have a sense of, you know, curfew and all that. But when a set ends with what you could argue with 3 back-to-back set closers, it does make you wonder, But especially when they go into Slave, I certainly thought that that was it. And then once they ended, and by the way, great version, really nice version, I thought.
Yeah.
Then you see Trey talking, and they got one more for you, and we kind of figured it was Cavern, but it was yeah, I don't know. It seemed it's tough. I don't want to say clunky. It was great, but like you said, when they end with 3 arguable set closers, you do wonder what was going on. If anything, maybe nothing. Maybe that was the plan.
Yeah,
it definitely. Do you guys think it gave? There's this rumor going around. I don't know if it's a rumor. There's just like a talking point within the Phish community right now. We're halfway through this spring tour. They play 4 more shows, with 1 more here in Charleston, 3 in Deer Creek. There's a real easy path for the band right now to play essentially a no repeats tour in the same vein that they played fall 2019. And while on the one end, I don't know if that's like necessarily a goal that they still have. Like they did it at the Baker's Dozen, they do it on fall 2019. They are starting to like kind of put themselves in position to be able to do it by saying, we know that we can come out and we can jam as much as we want. We know we can play songs like Walls of the Cave as the second song in the show and stretch that out. And even throwing like Golgi, Slave, Cavern all in a row, like those songs could theoretically end 3 different second sets in a row. But they're kind of putting themselves in a position where if they want to do this no repeats thing, they're making it more challenging on themselves while also playing really strong improvisational music. So that could be the direction they're going. I don't know. Did this give like more credence to this discussion point or less in your guys' opinion?
yeah. I mean, the more shows where they had no repeats, the more it builds, right? And I mean,
Yeah.
I was looking at like the top 50 songs not played in the past 4 shows. There's a lot. You could definitely see there being a no repeat show for the next 4. Or no, for the next 4. I think the first repeat will be either Life Beyond the Dream or I've Never Needed You Like This Before, because I don't think they can go that long without playing those songs. That's my personal opinion. But it would be cool. I mean, if you look at the stats, like, today, like, 20, 25 songs. I mean, there's still hundreds, but I don't think they set out with it as a goal, personally.
I'm all for the repeats. Let's get Tweezer tonight. No, but I did see a funny comment on Phish.net today that said, I think it was a little bit of a trolling comment, but they said they played a show like last night so that they don't set themselves up for a tour finale as a Charleston 3. Which we were at. Had a great time. But I think you all know what he was getting at. But I didn't really think of it the way you mentioned it, Brian, as taking 3 potential set closers off the board. But then again, with the way they've been playing, who's to say what's a set closer? We've seen Ghost end the first set twice in the last 6-7 months.
And that's the thing that's so fascinating about this is like I remember, there was a point in the fall where there were 3 successive Slave to the Traffic Lights played in the first set.
Loved it.
That's a song that just like threw off the vibe, in a good way. Like it changes the complete vibe of the show. So yeah, I mean, anything can be a set closer at this point in time. Anything can be a show opener. Our friend, our co-host, our brother here, Jonathan Hart, says I Am Hydrogen opener, which is the opener that would officially allow him to lose his mind in the best way possible. And I'd be cheering for that. It is wild to think what's going to happen. And we'll see. I think tonight's the night that we will know in a lot of cases, are they really going for this? Because this is the 5th show. Is there something from night 1 of the tour, night 2 of the tour that's going to return? Could a song like Tweezer go on like a 2-show rotation because they're just feeling like jamming that out? But again, anything can be jammed out right now.
Yeah. I mean, you had last fall, you had the extended jam in Fluffhead, right? Brian, you were at that show in Chula Vista. Like there's, they haven't played Simple. They haven't played You Enjoy Myself. They haven't played. I mean, I think Divided Sky seems like an obvious pick for the first set, just because of the time of the show, and the setting seems good for that.
Yeah,
But
David Bowie.
Split Up in the Middle, David
Bowie.
Bowie, Down with Disease. I mean, there's so many, and I think that based on our Undermine season about the Baker's Dozen, I'm pretty sure there'll be a jammed out Lawn Boy in one of these shows that will surpass the Baker's Dozen. I don't
Deer
know.
Creek
It would be
Lawn
interesting.
is deserving of a Lawn Boy jam.
Exactly. Oh man, it's gonna be fun. But what about this? There was a 20 minutes of music in the encore, right? I mean, that's also just sort of a surprise.
Can I note two really quick things before we jump to the encore? One, to your point of like what's on the table, they've soundchecked Knuckle Bone Broth Avenue in multiple shows in a row, including three times last night.
Yep.
That is a song that has a 20-minute set 2 opening groove written all over it. I would love to hear that played again. It's just like that would get in your head. Also, they noted on Fishnet, Golgi Apparatus contained the lyric, "I saw you with a barcode in your hand," which to me, it's hilarious. And it feels like Phish being like, yeah, we're moving ahead with the times. They're all digital tickets, but God damn it, we want you to have tickets. Like, we want you to be able to hold up your ticket stub. It feels very get off my lawn-ish.
I have faith they're coming back in 2023. I have faith.
I hope so. I mean,
they're now selling commemorative PTBMs on dry goods for like $10. That's like, come on, let's get them.
I'm literally looking at a cork board right now every time I record that has every ticket stub I've ever seen. Like, the idea that I'm going to go to a bunch of Phish shows this summer and not add them to this.
Hey, I don't know if you guys have been to Alpine. There's no real, if you don't add that ticket to your wallet nowadays, the digital wallet, there's no real phone connection. It could get hairy out there trying to locate your ticket.
That's a very
Digital
good point.
ticket.
It's in the middle of the woods. Well, yeah, let's talk. RJ, what were your thoughts about that encore that features the first ever 46 days in the encore slot and a very, very heavily jammed out tube?
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like if they're going for no repeats, they're not really worried about it, because those are two like first set staples that I mean, they could have easily just like done a Rocky Top encore or something, or something like simple, and they didn't. So I think they're having a lot of fun, and I think the early curfews are actually like, I think they're used to playing until 11:30, and it just like, I think Trey really just I think they all just want to keep playing for as long as possible, which is really awesome.
Yeah, I'm all for the jammed out encores. I think last night was number 77, and I think that was only the second what could be qualified as a jammed out encore. That and the San Francisco Carini from last year. And again, I'm all for it. Like Brian mentioned earlier, the 46 days, first time being in the encore slot. Again, I think I saw Jonathan comment, set openers, closers, labels are meaningless, and we saw that again last night. And so that was fun to see with 46 days. And then the tube, it's Trey, again, what Brian mentioned earlier, just he was buried in his effects, which was fun.
I just love like the way the camera hit Trey at that moment. Like his leg went like 6 different places at once, being like, I got to get back to like my normal guitar sound. He was so lost. But yeah, it was wild. When they came out on stage, it was like 10:05, 10:10 Eastern, something like that. It was pretty early. It was 8:00 my time. And that's usually when the band comes out on stage for a second set. And, like on the East Coast, if they play MSG, they come out around 10:00 for the second set. And when they open with 46 days, like it kind of felt like they're just opening the second set here. And when they fell into the jam, like I was just watching on the video, like some people were dancing, like getting down, like it's a whole new set. And other people were like standing around like, what the hell is going on? This is just supposed to be, contact into Rocky Top or whatever, just kind of like, all right, we got one more dose of Phish and then we're going home. But I thought these were two really hyper connected jams. And I felt like The band was really showcasing, like, yeah, to your point, they want to just keep playing, and they're feeling good on this tour at this point in time, which is, take everything else away, that's what we're looking for.
That's it. And Matt, you get to go back.
So you're going to night 2 tonight.
Yeah, this will be last night and tonight are the only shows I'm hitting this spring leg, but I'll be at every stop of the way, starting with night 1 of The Man, ending with night 2 of Merriweather, and then I'll pick things back up at Dick's. So I hope to see you two and a few others listening on the way.
Absolutely, man. Let's stay connected, and we'll have you back on as we move into the summer tour to get your thoughts as the band's evolving. And those East Coast shows, if they're playing like this in Alabama and South Carolina, kind of out of market shows, like I have no idea what to expect when they get to Merriweather and the Man and Jones Beach and all these like famous venues that they've played in the past.
Yeah, being from Baltimore, Merriweather is our hometown venue, so excited to see what iteration of the band is playing music at the end of July.
Only time I ever saw them there was 2015, and it was an absolute. That first night was an absolute party and throwdown. And yeah, I'm jealous of everyone who's going to be at those shows. There should be a ton of fun.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. This was a blast.
Yeah, have fun, Matt.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks. All right, guys.
We'll
see you
here soon. Bye. Awesome. So 4 shows in. You feel good about where Phish is at, or do you have questions?
No question. I don't really have any questions. It's taken me a while to get into this tour. I don't know why. Sometimes when the tours start, I'm like, I get it right away. And then some tours, it just takes me a while to kind of like get where they're going. And I feel like I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't know if that ever happens to you, but
it does. It sneaks up on you. It's weird. Like, you get so used to this world of like listening to old shows and looking ahead at the tour, and then you're like, oh my God, the tour starts next week. And we've got to like start understanding where the band's at this point in time. And I don't think they're helping us by playing so many jams and so many songs and placements that we don't anticipate. There's just a lot to consume and try to understand about the band right now, but it's all good and it's all really exciting.
Yeah. I think we should keep doing this.
I like it. I'm into it. So we'll be back here tomorrow, same time, 1 p.m. Eastern. We have an excellent guest lined up to talk with us about night 2 at Charleston. And then we'll be continuing to do this throughout the weekend. We've got Deer Creek, which you talk about like not being prepared for tour, not being prepared for where the band is at right now. They're playing 3 nights at Deer Creek this weekend. Like that is as legendary of a venue as the band could be playing at. I can't wait.
It's going to be nuts, man. It's going to be nuts. I hope everyone joins us.
I hope everyone joins us. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their Wednesday here. We will see you tomorrow, Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern to break down that show. Quick reminder to everyone out there, please check out sunsetlakecbd.com. Use coupon code HFPod for 20% off all products, as well as please visit cashertrade.org, the only secondary ticketing marketplace where fans buy, sell, and trade tickets at face value. You can DM each other before, during, and after transactions, rate and review each other when a transaction is complete. There's no added fees to sell your tickets. All sales are fully protected by Casher Trade's trader protection policy, which guarantees your money back should anything go wrong. And you can avoid purchase fees with a gold membership subscription. Go to cashertrade.org to learn more. With that, I will break from listening and discussing Phish for at least 24 hours. I hope you do the same, RJ, although we do have a Phish show to listen to tonight, but we'll be back tomorrow to break this all down.
Yep. We're going to do it.
We're going to do it. Have a good one out there, everyone. Stay safe and enjoy the show tonight.